Hey, y'all, welcome to a special edition of the Common Good Podcast. It's a Friday edition. I get to talk with Minnesota State Senate candidate Simon Trautmann, and I am thrilled about this. Good to see you, buddy.
It's great to be here. Great to be seen.
Simon, it's possible that on the podcast that I have run, you've been the most frequent guest. I was thinking about that today.
Do I qualify friend of the show status?
For sure, friend of the show status. So thank you. Thanks for being on this. I mean, you've been on before you were an elected official. You were on, I think, when you were a member of the Richfield, Minnesota City Council.
Yeah.
And now you're on as a candidate for the Minnesota State Senate, District 51.
We are. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for all the righteousness you managed to get up to across the country, encouraging people to vote for the common good.
Well, you bet. Hey, and you're one of our common good candidates. Oftentimes, Rob Ryerson has the privilege of doing these conversations with our candidates. I'm glad to be talking to you today. All right, Simon, what pushed you to think?
Rob's okay. Rob's okay, but I'm glad to talk to you.
I'm glad to be the understudy. I'm glad to be the fill-in. You know, the Broadway second act when the stars have to take a break. I'm glad to fill that spot. All right, buddy. What got you thinking that being in the Minnesota State Senate was going to be the best way for you to contribute to the goodness that you do? You're a person of deep conviction and faith. You work a lot in immigrant communities in Minnesota. You're a lawyer. You've been a member of the city council. What brought you to the place where being in the state Senate is how you know you're going to be useful?
Well, thanks for having me on, and it's been one of the great privileges of my life to represent a neighborhood that I grew up in our Senate district. And after serving for 2 terms in our Senate district, I was also really excited to step away and not run for re-election. And we had a great city council member in that seat. He's doing great work. And in 2025, personally, I had a great experience spending time with my family. Really proud of the attorneys I get to work with. For the last 13 years, we've built a law firm with now about a dozen lawyers, committed to the radical proposition that legal professionals can be happy and healthy. We try to create a counterculture that humanizes people in the practice of law. And we work with everybody, but primarily we serve Black, Latino, first-generation immigrant business owners, entrepreneurs. Great joy of my life to do this work with the people I get to do it with. Simultaneously, we had an election. I'm not sure if you noticed in 2024, in 2025, and
I did notice
something.
Yeah.
You did notice that, and the person that we elected promised a mass deportation event.
Yeah.
That we have not seen on the scale of the Trail of Tears, and so, as he continued to talk about that, I continued to be alarmed, and I continued to have conversations with people. And then when we saw north of $170 billion earmarked for ICE and earmarked for Homeland Security, there are only so many things you can do with $170 billion more money than we've sent to the Ukraine, and they all look like building a domestic army.
Yeah.
And so I am shocked but not surprised by any of the horrific things that we've seen in our country and in our state and in our communities. And people ask why I'm running for office. You know, I joke, I say, well, I have too much time and not enough pain in my life. But
that's a great line. Hey, Simon, you've been deeply connected in the Somali community here in Minnesota and the Twin Cities. You've visited Somalia yourself. You have friends. You're deeply embedded. The federal government thought that the people of Minnesota would turn against the Somali community when they initiated a number of slanderous accusations about our community here, when they attacked ICE. There was the belief that the people of Minnesota would choose sides and would want to drive out the immigrant populations. The opposite has happened. What can you tell people who don't know, and the only thing they hear about the Somali community is what they hear from news reports or accusations or the current president? What's important for people around the country to know about the good people of Minnesota, including our Somali community?
Well, one thing that's really important to know is that nearly every Somali Minnesotan is a citizen, and and not just somebody with immigration status. There are virtually no Somali people that are here without status.
Hmm.
There's
Why
a
is
small
that? How is
percentage.
what's the structure that allowed for that to happen?
Well, Somali immigrants came in significant numbers back in the 90s.
Hmm.
So now you fast forward 30 years, and the majority of Somali citizens here in the Twin Cities were actually born here
Yep.
in Minnesota. Um, and um, and folks that weren't born here are majority citizens, and then there's a small percentage that have status. And status is just like they came here legally. They
Hmm.
they have a recognized immigration status, and then there's some like very small digit percentage that don't have status. And so I tell folks, when you send thousands of masked gunmen to Somali cultural
Hmm.
malls and you start demanding papers from people, they would actually find more undocumented immigrants at the Mall of America
Wow.
than going to places like locally people will know the Carmel Mall or the 24 Mall. So there's not so you have to ask the question, what is the federal government looking
Yeah.
for if they're not actually looking for people without status? Because if you had to pick a group of people without
Right.
status, you would not pick a group that disproportionately not just has status, but disproportionately are citizens
Yeah.
of the United States. And for folks that maybe aren't as familiar, there's something that's emerged in this last year called a Kavanaugh stop, named after Justice Kavanaugh, who wrote an opinion that said,
Hmm.
you might be able to consider the race or ethnic identity of somebody when deciding whether or not you could search, you could hold them, detain them, search them. And so now, the Supreme Court, sneezes, and people of color in America catch pneumonia
Yeah.
because now police and federal agencies are interpreting that in maximalist and really perverse ways. So that if you look a certain way, you have less rights and you're compelled to carry things like passports. So we're a Latino family. I'm very light skinned, obviously. So we have conversations in our home. Who who is who is white enough to not need to carry a passport in our family? And the consensus is I'm white enough. My wife is not.
Hmm.
And so now we have liberty in our country that is not determined obviously by the content of my character. It's determined by literally the color of my skin.
Yeah.
You don't need to carry a passport if you look like me. You might need to carry a passport if you look like my wife. That is insane. It's perverse, but it's particularly manifested in a situation like Somali people, where you say, well, you look Somali, so now I have a right to demand your passport.
Yeah.
Where if you were actually looking at it, it's like, well, you look Somali, so you almost certainly are a citizen.
Right.
Are the facts on the ground?
Yeah. That's the
So
reality.
even by this new perverse Kavanaugh standard,
Hmm.
Somalis should experience that sphere of
Yeah. There you
liberty
go.
that citizens experience. But that's of course not the case.
Part of the calculus of the stated calculus of the Trump administration, J.D. Vance has made this point very clearly, is that they want to limit immigration in the United States because they believe that we are lacking social cohesion. This is the word they use in the United States. And
Well,
because of so much immigration, we are struggling with a nation to feel as if it's a nation. They have some fanciful idea about all this stuff. But this is literally their stated, I mean, they've said it repeatedly in so many places, why they want less immigrants and they want people to
Doug,
leave.
I
What did people
I
learn
think
when they came to Minnesota?
well, mission accomplished. I have never seen more social cohesion in my life.
Yeah.
incredible social
Yeah.
cohesion in Minnesota. Thank you very much. Where Black folks, Latino folks, Somali folks, white folks have all decided we are human folks,
Yeah.
and 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 I just really, and you see this too. There's a sense that of course, we're fighting for our Latino neighbors, we're fighting for our Somali neighbors, but we're fighting for our own civil rights.
Yes. Yes.
This is there's not a certain part of the Constitution that's the Latino part of the Constitution. No, the rule of law protects everybody.
Everybody.
And as I'm running for office, one of my most earnest hecklers, at the city council, he would come and send me emails throughout the week, and give me the business from the dais when he had open. He came to a No Kings rally this summer.
Wow.
'Cause he said, "Hey, what I don't like? I don't like kings. I don't like I don't like kings, and I'm not for any of this." And so then I saw him again at a city council member, and he said, "I want you to know, um, I heard what you said about ICE and immigration, and I wholeheartedly support you.
Hmm.
I'm supporting you. I'm emailing everybody." And then he took video and he shared it with all his friends in a good
Wow.
way, not in
Yeah.
the
There you go.
not in the bad. And he
He,
came out and he came out and caucused for us. So for folks
wow.
that are around the country, we like Iowa, we have caucuses before primaries where we show up as a party and we say this is what
Hmm.
we want to talk about. These are the people we want to put forward. These are our platforms. And he showed up for the first time. He said, "Can I be an independent?" I said, "Yeah, you bet you could be an
Hmm.
independent." And he caucused with us.
Wow. I mean, it's pretty great when
Thank you,
somebody
sir.
who's your opponent changes their video standards from an "I gotcha" to "I got you," and
Wow. Yes, that's
the
it. Yeah.
that's what we want. Okay, Simon, we've talked about this a bunch. I am uncomfortably obsessed with helping people learn about the political system whenever they have a
Love it.
chance to hear from a candidate, because most of us just the process of politics is obviously complicated. Laws are complicated,
Yeah.
rules are complicated,
Yep.
all this. But even the people who represent all of us is something many people don't understand. I think I counted up one time, maybe I have 37 people, if that could be possible, for whom I'm counted as one of their constituents. Between city council members and
That's right.
people at the county level and people at the federal level and people at the state level. Like, there's a lot of people for whom I am their constituent. I've
And
rarely
for, and
met
for the
any of
local
them.
folks, there's a thing called the Met Council, which is like a super county. That's another layer,
Another
even
layer.
in
So I've
between
got a bunch
the
of people.
county.
I've
Yeah.
never met them. They don't know me, but it's helpful to know what they do and what the difference is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, my wife, who's very tuned into things and cares about the social fabric and what's going on, and she has taken on a case of Trump-induced Tourette's, as she swears, walking around the house thinking about what's happening. She's not a person who uses profanity, but now she does. Super tied in. My friend who was running for Congress, she said, what's he running for? And I said, he's running for Congress. And she goes, like the one that goes to Washington, D.C.? Now, she's not an
Yeah.
uninformed person, but the complications are really hard
Yeah.
to wrap your mind around. So someone will see Minnesota State Senate.
Yes.
Tell us what a Senate representative does at a state level as compared to the senators at the federal level, and just give a little picture of why this role is important, what you can accomplish as a state senator,
Yeah.
and sort of what you can't. And as you're doing that, you can even tell us about the things you have on your website, like you care about universal primary care and you care about a fully funded
Hey.
education in Minnesota, Minnesotans being protected from government abuse and that kind of thing. So you can talk about any of that you want.
Look at that.
But as
This
you
is
do, just give us
this
a
is a
little
great
picture.
graphic here. Thanks for putting that
Yeah,
up.
I got that right off your website. So whoever did that,
Hey,
thanks
fantastic.
to them. All right. So tell us, what is the state senator doing, and what's the role and what's the function that you're going to be in when you win this election, when you win the primary and you win this election?
So there are two big things that that electeds do, particularly senators, legislators. You set a budget and you establish the rules for your part of the government.
Hmm.
and then you do constituent services. And so I would tell folks, and when I became a council member, I tell folks I'm the customer service representative for the government for 10,000 of my neighbors. And now I'm
Hmm.
aspiring to be the customer service representative for the government for 100,000 of my neighbors.
Okay.
And that really, it's hard to underestimate how important, how powerful that role is. Because like you said, people are like, Congress, is that in Washington, D.C.? I don't know. It's not, that's not that person's fault that they don't know that.
No.
Not everybody needs to be a political nerd. They just need to live their life. But then you live your life and then something unjust, unfair,
Yeah.
unimaginable happens. And then you righteously want the government to work.
Yes.
And when it doesn't, it feels unjust, unrighteous, oppressive. It's all those things. And so as an elected, we give people power. And you can use that power in any number of ways. One of the best things you can do as an elected is to recognize, identify your power, and use it for the benefit of your constituents, which may be being something as simple as, oh, you did not understand this. Let me explain it and let me point you in this direction. Or, you are stuck here. And so it's a letter, it's a call, or this is not power enough for me. We need to gather more power to fight for the whatever this constituent issue is. And so I love doing that. Would be honored to do that again. Then the other big piece is budget and what will the laws be, and the difference between the Senate and the House of Representatives or the State House is that almost is every election cycle. A state house rep or a Congress member is going to be running, where a senator runs less often. And the goal and the hope and the expectation is that this will be a more deliberative body.
Okay.
And you will have more opportunity to look beyond the next election cycle to look for the long-term best interest for our state.
What does a Minnesota state senator not do that you are running into people thinking, hey, when you get into office, what kinds of things do you hear them say?
Well, right now in Minnesota, we've had an invasion of thousands of masked gunmen that are using the color of law to do things like break car windows without warrants, break into homes without warrants, seize people with valid work permits and green cards, and incarcerate them, with no immediate date when they would be released. So when you talk to people in our community and you say, what can we do? What's top of mind for you? The number one answer universally is get ICE the hell out of our community.
Okay.
And so as a state senator, there are things we can do. There are things that we can't do. There are things that we can do, like we can set policy that requires our local police to identify federal agents and people that would purport to be federal agents, and clarifying what identifying means. Because if you see somebody with a Velcro patch that says ICE or immigration police, anybody can buy that on Amazon.
Yeah.
And of course, tragically, in our state, people have impersonated police and they've murdered political leaders.
Yes.
They've shot one of our senators. They killed our Speaker Emeritus, Melissa Hortman. And so
a person who was disguised as a police officer came to their door.
Who was a police officer? That's right. That's exactly right. So part of being just like a lawyer, you have to work within the law and you have to be creative to solve problems. As a legislator, we have to work within our law and say, if those agents that killed our citizens in January would have had to have presented their identification to other law enforcement moments before they had those altercations, but could we have saved lives? I don't know. I hope so. I think people who are told they have absolute immunity and functional anonymity. We see this on social media. When people think nobody will ever know who I am, they tend to speak differently than they do to people that they know in their neighborhood.
Yeah, or if they think no one's going to read their emails and they send one to Jeffrey Epstein, they tend to write different things than when they...
Or that. Or
Or
that for
that.
everybody who said, just like everybody else, I searched to see if my name was in the Jeffrey email list. I'm sure you and I did not search our
No, no,
names.
I didn't. I didn't check. No,
That's right.
I don't think Barack Obama checked. I don't think Joe
That's
Biden
right.
checked. There are a lot of people who didn't have to check, and there's a small
A
group
lot
of
of people did
people,
not have to check.
a,
That's right.
lot of people who did. Okay, one other thing that a lawmaker does is they get to make laws.
Yeah.
Do you have any laws in mind when you are sworn in January of next year? Do you have an idea for you know, state Senate bill
Yeah.
number, S-47 is going to have Simon
Yeah. Well,
Trautmann
we have great.
Cordova's name on what bill? What you
Well,
got in mind?
there's some really good legislation that's working through the Senate right now, uh, specifically around holding ICE accountable.
Okay.
And we have Senator Fate and our Senate President, Senator Champion, They're championing a bill to make it possible for citizens and folks like the ACLU to be able to sue,
Hmm.
to have their civil rights protected. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a relatively non-controversial bill to say if your constitutional rights are violated, you should have a mechanism and a means to redress that. You would think that would not be very controversial, and I
Yeah.
think we will get some bipartisan support for that. But you
Great.
you may or may not be surprised to learn that that's a controversial statement to make in 2026. So there are
Great.
bills like that I hope will pass, but because we have divided government right now, getting that through the House is going to be hard. So if that's not the case, this is why elections matter. We need to be able to pass legislation that gives people confidence that when the government acts, we can hold ourselves accountable. Also, there's an administrator who, and I'm sure it's not unique to them, who said, the best time to plant a tree is 40 years ago, and the second best time is today.
Oh,
The
come on.
time
That's a
for
great quote. Who's that from?
uh, Neil Rich is a pastor in Bloomington said that, and I just thought, boy, that's great. And I
Wow.
thought, the time for universal health care was 40 years ago. The second best time, Doug, to have universal health care
When?
is today. It's
25
today,
years,
Doug.
25 years ago,
Yeah, that's right.
39 years
And
ago,
and
38 years ago, 30. No, I get the point.
no,
I'm going to
there. I
steal that.
mean,
I'm
there are a
just
lot
going
of
to change the
there.
dates and then make it mine. Yeah.
There are a lot of things that are broken. About a month ago, there was a health insurance company that um, had denied life-saving medication to a late-stage cancer patient. Um, it contrary to the not just the recommendation but the demand of two experts who literally said this is the only thing that could save this person's life, and a non-expert in the insurance company just said, well, we're not saying no, we're just saying not right now. Let's circle back in 6 months. Why don't you
Good
try
Lord.
this cheaper medication? And so we had the
Good golly.
privilege of of explaining very clearly and explicitly that this was administrative homicide,
Wow.
and that they should weigh their decisions very carefully, and we should be very clear about what this is. And magically, 24 hours later, after that letter, the medical opinion of that evaluator evolved to allow for that care.
Facts
But
on the
not
ground
everybody gets.
changed when a lawyer sent a letter and said,
Well, and that's part of why it's so important to one, it's so important to win, and why it's important to
yeah,
get the policy right. Because as a lawyer, I have the privilege, and we have the privilege of fighting for a person. But when the system incentivizes
mm,
non-experts to deny medicine from
yeah,
people, we just have a we have nobody can live through that
yeah,
and
yeah.
feel like this is a fair system,
Wow.
this is a just system. The number one reason for bankruptcy in America are medical expenses.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
your chances if you get serious cancer of of going broke are 1 in 2. You should not Being sick should not be a
Yeah,
life ending a financially ending event for you. If there was a time to share the risk, this is the time. And so I think a lot of people can buy into that, but then the question is how do we do that, and
Yeah.
where do we start?
Okay. So
And where we can start.
what are your thoughts on that? Are you in the camp of get insurance to everyone, or are you in the camp of change the delivery system so that it's not built around a money making insurance system?
Yeah, I mean, but there's plenty of money to be made in healthcare. Insurance is fundamentally broken. I'm really supportive of providing funding providers, focusing on provider focused solutions, and starting with universal primary care. In starting with pilot cities, just to demonstrate how cost effective um, and how efficacious this can be. For our employees in our office, we provide universal primary care that includes X-rays, it includes EKGs, it includes physical therapy, it includes mental health for less than $100 a month per family.
And when you say
And
that, you're saying you provide health insurance that pays for those services.
it's
You're
not. It's
not
actually not
providing.
insured. We're not providing those. So we contract with a provider
Okay.
directly, as opposed to insurance. So we
Okay.
pay a fee. It's like a subscription fee, but we pay a fee to make sure that everybody has access to care. And so when people need
So that
care,
you're saying it's directly a business relating to a provider and the
a
members
provider,
of that business.
direct to provider care, yes.
Is
And
that
so,
something that people are pushing in the state of Minnesota to get to? Because for 30, 40 years, Minnesota bragged about having the only one of the first nonprofit insurance systems.
yeah,
But
yep.
doesn't mean people get better care. I don't know. For some reason, it just still becomes. I mean,
That's right.
my wife and I pay. We pay $1,300 a month for
Month. Yeah,
insurance that has a $13,000
that's what I was going to
deductible.
ask. That's right.
So
So you
we
pay
spend
so you pay 15 more than $15,000
yeah,
a year, um, hoping that you never get sick, because if you get sick, you and your wife are going to have to pay another $26,000,
yeah. It's just cataclysmic insurance, basically.
because that's not $13,000 in total. That's $13,000 out of pocket for each of you, and
Yeah.
then you have a max. Do you happen to know what your max deductible is, Doug Pagitt?
I don't think I do. And by the way,
Because
those insurance premiums, to nerd out here,
yeah,
are not
that's
included
right.
in what you're paying for the $13,000 deductible that you have to get to.
That's exactly
it's
right.
so when I hear people say we just need to give health insurance to everybody,
No,
it's like that I don't know when anyone thought that was a good idea. Obamacare is extremely frustrating to people like me because it
yep.
expanded health insurance care and didn't change the healthcare delivery system. And I'm not even yet talking about preventative care versus.
That's right.
I'm just talking about sick care. Just
That's
that
right.
would be fine at this point. Just get to a
That's right.
sick care that's not absolutely bonkers without structure. Do you think Minnesota can change any of that? Is something you think you could do when you're elected?
Well, so here there are a couple of reasons why we can, and the time to do it is now. We spend about $9 billion a year in Minnesota on primary care, and we spend a good portion on that, just like you described, in all the premiums that we pay, and then we get the privilege of paying for it a second time when we actually get sick, and because not many of us use $13,000 a year in primary care.
Right, which is their premiums. Yeah.
Which are the well 15,000. Well, you told me that it's actually
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
close
I
to
see what you're saying. The
$15,000 a
deductible.
year.
I never reach my deductible. Yeah. No, I don't.
Yes, you never reach your deductible,
No.
so you spend close to $15,000 a year, as a great
Yep.
example for you and your wife. That 15K comes right off the top, and then you
Mm-hmm.
actually get sick. And you got to ask the
Yes.
same question: And we know that 1 in 2 Minnesotans doesn't actually have, and will struggle to find $500
Yes.
to cover a medical emergency.
Yes.
So how perverse is it to take $15,000 a year away from working people,
Wow.
and then say, boy, I hope you don't ever get sick and you don't actually need to use care, because guess what? Insurance doesn't actually cover
Yes.
any of the care you're going to need this year. Um, but if you do have cancer or something, God
Yes.
forbid, something catastrophic like that, now your insurance is going to go up to $30,000 a year.
Yep.
And you just got to hope that none of your loved ones get sick, and then you still are at the whims of an insurer saying, well, we're not gonna provide care for that. So this is what we could do. Instead of taking that $8 billion a year, asking people to pay once and then pay twice,
Yeah.
we can fund providers to provide care when
Wow.
care is needed. And so I give this example
Who's doing that? And can people like me buy into that rather than the system I'm in?
actually people like you, because it's available to small business owners like you. We use Nice Healthcare, and Nice Healthcare. I
All
was
right.
roughhousing with my boys in August, and I chipped a bone in my pinky toe, and fractured a little corner of it. Was limping around, and said, "Boy, I should probably get it checked out."
That little
I made
piggy
an
went
appointment.
wee all the way home.
I made a little appointment on my phone. The next morning, or Monday morning, in my bed, took a picture of my phone. This is what's happening with my foot. And they said, oh, we'd really like to take a look at that. So later that day, they sent a nurse practitioner to my conference room, inspected my foot, and they said, well, we'd really like to get this x-rayed. Sent an x-ray machine to my living room.
What?
Took a picture, took an x-ray of my foot in my living room, and they said, oh, yep, it's broke, but it's chipped, it's so small, you don't need a splint. There's not really, just like, don't run any marathons, it'll heal. But if I would have needed physical therapy, they could have provided physical therapy. Also, all that would have been provided.
I want that.
It says you're gonna get it. This is not meant to be a commercial.
No,
but
turned into one. It's pretty good. It's better than those other bad podcasts where they actually do commercials. It's called Nice Healthcare.
It's called Nice Healthcare. It's a local entrepreneur here that I've known for many years. And so when I started to think about, well, this might be an opportunity and a moment to run for Senate, I'm like, well, what would it cost for the state to be in the position to provide this care, which I consider luxury care, but I know that we provide it for ourselves and we provide it for our employees at a fraction of the cost of what it would cost if we had a third party insurer providing that care.
Okay.
And these are really, in this world of partisanship, these are actually really bipartisan solutions.
Yeah.
I've not met a Republican that said, I love Blockbuster so much. That's how I want to get my health care. I just want to get up. I want to go. I want to return my DVDs when there's a Netflix option where you can pay a subscription, and when you want to watch a movie, you watch a movie.
Yeah.
I think everybody who has kids said, would you rather take your child into a pediatric, which is not to say there are never moments when there are always exceptions for which you need specialized care, you need to be present, you need to be present for physical therapy. This is not to dismiss any of that, but to say for every rural senior citizen who is not likely to support my politics, but they know when clinics are closing and hospitals are closing, and they know that they have to drive an hour and a half to get care, to say, you don't have to be wise, smart, or be born in the right place to deserve and have access to medical care.
Yeah. I was looking up a meme there while you were talking that I had remembered, and it reads this: imagine paying for Netflix every month and then paying again every time you watch a movie, and then you get a final bill later because the director didn't sign with Netflix, so you have to pay him directly. It says, this is a post about health insurance.
Isn't that Amazon Prime?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's insanity. Okay, well, thank you for your creativity about that. Hey, we had talked yesterday about something else I think would be really great for people to hear, and that's a story about how organizing and government engagement and bringing people into the system is important, but also necessary to make sure that decisions made by those who have great levels of power, which the government tends to do, are being thoughtful. Can you talk about that? Because it has to do with like where roads run and big road construction things. And I thought it was really a brilliant way to sort of describe your philosophy of governing and all the rest.
Well, thanks, Doug. And when it comes to government, and it comes to so many things happen in committees. And if you ask an average person, how would you like to spend, like 2,000 hours in the next 4 years sitting in committees? Not too many people would say, please sign me up, sir. Can I have some more?
Yeah.
But where power grows, happens, sleeps, and is manipulated, happens in committees. And so for folks that are not from the greater Twin Cities area, we have a freeway that goes right through the middle of our district. It's called 494, and in 494, always terrible traffic. And so the Minnesota Department of Transportation has a mission, and that mission is to make traffic better on that freeway. And so they can be very aggressive and very muscular, pushing especially smaller cities to accommodate what they might call the greater good. But if anybody knows the history of white flight in America and how our highways were built, neighborhoods were destroyed. And disproportionately, they were Black and brown neighborhoods. Here in Minnesota, that's the Rondo neighborhood, that's the Phillips neighborhood, that still economically suffer today because of what the federal highway system and the state highway system did when they displaced and tore up those communities. So there was an ask/demand from the Department of Transportation to take access points away from the cities of Bloomington and Richfield.
Okay, so let's explain this for a minute, because when I was a kid, I was like 12, and I'm 59, so I don't know how long ago 12 years, 47 years ago. I remember my dad saying, while we're driving on 494 by Penn Avenue, like, hey, there's big plans for them to really widen and expand this highway.
Yes.
Now I'm an old man, older than my father was when he told me that, and they're finally doing it. Like, they have been coming at this thing for decades. Like, this really is the plan 40 years ago to build, to plant a tree. And they've been coming at this thing. So for a long time, they really got their mindset on what they were going to do. And you're saying their idea was to take away on and off exits because that is a traffic choke point? Is that their theory? That every time we put an exit and an entrance, it slows up traffic, and we're trying to prevent that.
That's right. So that's a big part. That's a simplification, but you're right. You're right over the landing zone, and it's understandable why somebody would want to do that. But the consequences of that in our communities are that we have maybe 18% of Richfield residents are renters, and mostly low income, mostly Black and Latino folks, people of color, are right there in that neighborhood. And so the economic consequences of taking access away is going to be significant. It's going to be profound. And you understand the state's interest, but it's the job of community, and it's the job of legislators to organize together and speak truth to power to say, you can't do that without also investing in our community. And so the investments that we demanded is, well, if you're going to take access away, you've been promising to build other access points.
Okay.
And so you have to do that. And I said, well, you see, that's just that might be 50 feet over in a different highway, but that's a different project. It's really important. It's really important. It's just not in the budget for this project.
There you go.
And so what we ended up, and the way government works is we're going to get into multiple committees. There was an elected committee of 60 electeds from the surrounding cities and state and county legislatures. And then there are engineers that meet after the policymakers, the electeds meet. And so we organized almost every elected on that committee. We organized everybody from Bloomington, from Richfield, from our state legislature, from our county commission. We got everybody to speak with one voice to say, we're rejecting this proposal because you're going to harm our communities without making necessary investments in our community. And this was after years of arguing back and forth. Um, one voice. And it took years to build that level of trust between all the cities. Um, and and everybody spoke with one voice. And then one of our legislators um, got the director of transportation to say the quiet part out loud.
Mm.
And he said, I just have not seen, and this is a dirty word now, but we got to reclaim it. I don't see where you've considered equity in your planning. And the director said, well, I think I've, she said this and that, and said, well, I think we've indirectly considered equity. And that was a moment.
And how is that word used when the elected said equity? What was that person getting at, and what do you think the Department of Transportation had thought that meant when she said, well, indirectly we've been doing considering equity?
So what that means is when the state is trying to solve a problem, which is to move people faster through a neighborhood, some people are going to be harmed. Wealthy people are often much more adept at organizing and aggregating power. Historically, white wealthy people, really effective. In St. Paul, which is our capital, there is a stretch of freeway where the speed drops down to 45 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it's only 45 miles an hour there is because wealthy, powerful people in Crocus Hill did not want loud noise in their neighborhood. And so they organized to make sure that one of the largest freeways in the nation would reduce itself to 45 miles in their neighborhood. And so the question of equity is, who is organizing to speak for communities that are historically marginalized? And big surprise, it is people with less money, and it is not white people that face those problems. And so she said, well, we indirectly considered that. And that gave me the opportunity to say, thank you for saying the quiet part out loud. Because when we destroyed the Rondo neighborhood and damaged it, like, it still exists. It's revitalized, but it still economically suffers today because of the harm we did 3 generations ago.
And to be clear, the harm that was done there, and the example you gave, Phillips, and the world is full of these. Yes. If you said to me right now, let's meet over in the Rondo neighborhood, I'd be like, it's really hard to get there. And it's split up, and if we go to one place, it's hard to get to the other. Like, that kind of incidental choice has great impact on people who live there, the communities that have called those places home. So what happened in Richfield? Did they are they slowing this thing down to 494 down to 45 miles an hour?
Well, they didn't do that, but what they did do, and then this is how government works. After about a dozen testifiers said on behalf of our cities, our county, our state, we reject this proposal. The minutes of that meeting were recorded. Richfield had some concerns about the project as described. And so from this committee, that would be the message taken to the engineers to say, oh, we need to tinker on the edges of this project.
I see.
And so this is why you need to read the minutes in a meeting. So that boring part of the meeting where anybody says, does anybody have any amendments to the minutes of our last agenda? You can read those minutes, and they can matter. Nothing matters unless it matters.
Yeah.
And so I took the opportunity to rewrite. Richfield had some objections to the plan as stated. To Bloomington completely rejected the plan as stated. Richfield completely rejected the plan. Edina completely rejected. The state legislators completely. Our county rejected the plan. And as a group, there were no words of advocacy and support from any elected. Now, getting that right means the engineers and the bureaucrats have to solve a different problem.
Wow.
And they did. Because when they came back 3 months later, they said something marvelous. They said, we scored for equity. We scored for equity, which is an engineer's way of saying, okay, we're going to work the problem in our box. And if the problem is we need to we need to do right by people who are poorer, people that have less access to resources. Well, now there are a bunch of projects. We're going to give them a score. What does well? What does poorly? And they said, well, it turns out that putting in an underpass that's going to connect Bloomington and Richfield together, since we're taking away these, that scored really high.
Yeah.
And they said, you know what else scored really high? There are about 5,000 renters on one side of 494, and there's a grocery store on the other side. And if we put a handicap accessible walking bridge, we would actually connect thousands of people with limited transportation means to a grocery store. So this walking bridge scores really high. And so now we not only, as a future senator, I like to say, well, we got tens of millions of dollars of funding for our district. That's a huge win.
Yeah.
But even better, we worked together, we raised our voice, and we prevented the destruction and further exploitation of neighborhoods.
Wonderful.
at the risk of expediency. And we ended up doing both.
Hey, when's that project ever going to get done? I'm so tired of sitting in traffic over there at 494 and Penn Avenue. Former council member and future state senator.
That's right. Well,
what are you going to do to get these roads fixed?
That's a great question for
honestly.
Our current
when is
council
that
member.
thing going to be done?
No,
Because that thing is.
I want to say we probably have 18 more months. Yeah. Yes. So it's a big project, and nothing shocks me more, Doug, than the cost of roads.
Okay, talk about that. How much do roads cost?
Whatever you think, you have to multiply it.
Okay.
But what you see is asphalt, and you're like, I have a driveway. I can redo my driveway. It's so many thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
The road's just a big driveway. Why? What's going on?
Yeah.
But there's so much, and then when you talk about a freeway, the literal rivers of clean and gray water that are running underneath that freeway constantly.
Wow.
All the infrastructure surrounding that, and then everything you need to do to redirect everything that's happening for any length of time while you rebuild it is extraordinary. And then you model and buy, and you create proposals based on one price. And then let's say, for example, somebody on a whim slaps 15% tariffs on everything, to prove a point. And then all the work you've done now needs to be completely redone. And so that it's a complicated process. I have an immense amount of respect for engineers that do that work. I'm not an engineer, so I can only appreciate from a distance how complicated and what that work is, and why people would want to say, we're going to do everything we can to just fix this because Doug's dad just wants to get from Hopkins to the airport.
Yeah. In 1978, he was frustrated with Highway 494.
That's right.
He'd been long dead, and his son may not make it till the end of the construction on 494. Hey,
I hope so.
The biggest failed notion in American construction history, a U.S.-Mexico border wall, that nonsense.
Yeah.
$25 to $33 million per mile.
Yeah.
$25 to $33 million per mile. So that's just a crappy 25-foot border wall. That's just like the thing they put on the side of the highway to keep the sound out. It's just that. That part.
How about this, Doug? $1 billion a day to bomb a country that is not an immediate existential threat to the United States of America.
$1 billion a day just to break things.
That means if we could cut this war 10 days short, Minnesota could provide free primary care for every Minnesotan for the next decade. 10 days of war.
If they just don't put in an order to replace those weapons that they blew up in Iran.
Yeah. So we're $1 billion a day. Yeah.
$1 billion a day.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, this is a thing that people don't recognize, and what you'll be taking on when you're a state senator is the scope of money. I mean, people talk about it like, financiers and economists, where they use symbols to not have to say millions and billions. They say 1B and 2B and 1M and 10M because the numbers almost feel impossible to recognize and to consider how much goes into it. And it's really not all waste. I mean, I know people, and we did this whole stupid Doge thing, and people thought that Doge were going to come in and find all the waste. If you run any project and you run 8 to 10, 12% excess waste, that's in the ballpark. Every budget's somewhere in that. Like, you're never going to squeeze that out. You don't save $1 trillion by getting rid of waste. You don't have billions of dollars in
He certainly
fraud.
didn't.
Yeah,
He certainly did not.
Things cost money.
Things cost money. At the same token, you'll never catch me saying, as a business owner, well, fraud's not something you need to worry about, or abuse is not something to worry about, or we can't do this better. It's absolutely we can. What you don't want to do is just trust a billionaire with no competency with all our most sensitive data. And when he says, I know what fraud looks like, it looks like anything I disagree with.
Yes. That's what I mean. But even so, like, if you have you start getting into fraud and waste, and you're talking about a percentage. You're not talking about the whole thing. So these folks, in order to deal with a cut on the hand, they cut off the arm, and it's just foolhardy. Simon, thanks for running for office.
I don't think he cut off the hand. I think he just cut off the gold bracelet, stuck it in his pocket, and he said, "We'll use that for later."
Probably right. Just looted. Hey, thanks for running for office. Where are you in the process? Obviously, the election will be in November. November 3rd.
The election's in November. The primary is August 11th. And coming up here in a little less than a month is our party convention. So we have caucuses like they do in Iowa. And we had that caucus last month. And then in a month, we're going to have a convention where the parties will make a decision. And then there may or may not be a primary.
How many people are foolishly thinking they should run against you in the primary at this point?
We have one opponent.
All the best to that person.
Oh, absolutely.
Simon, I look forward to you remembering us when you are gavelled in, and we will be coming back to you and holding you accountable for all the common good pledges that you've made, and we know you expect and demand that kind of accountability. So we'll be there with you.
We do. Thanks so much, friend. It's good to see you.
Okay. Anything else you want to say? I put the website up. I think I had it on there. Simon for 51. That's the state.
That's it. That's us.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell the good people?
I just want to tell everybody that Vote Common Good is accomplishing so much around the country by provoking righteous conversations where people have to decide what is the common good and vote accordingly, which is to stop fascism, think about their neighbor, and vote accordingly. So God bless you guys, and we're really proud to be connected with Vote Common Good.
This podcast has given me a new goal. The real Bob Basher wrote on YouTube, I took 10 minutes to tell this is a freaking liberal channel, and then some barf emojis. We're gonna work to drive that down to 8 minutes. We're gonna work really hard.
Nothing hurts more than 10 minutes. It took 10 minutes.
It took 10 minutes. You used the word equity.
Oh my gosh!
What took so long, brother?
No, we love all our neighbors, which includes whatever. I didn't catch the barf emoji guy. We love you too. We will try. We can do better. We'll do fast. We'll do it faster.
We can do better. Hey, what's a good day to subscribe to the Vote Common Good YouTube channel? 40 years ago. What's the second best day?
That's right. Second best time. Today, right now. Like and subscribe.
Right. I got to get that right. Yeah, today, right now is the right time. Okay, buddy. Thanks. We'll talk to you all later.
Yeah.